Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. So in today's video we are going to take a close look at a brand new product from AliExpress. This is called, the game console. X6 model. And when it comes to X6 or the X series devices, it's quite confusing. Simply because there are a lot of different X series devices out there. And I'm going to be honest, it's going to be a jungle. A new jungle beside the Pandora's box. But inside the package, there we're going to get a very interesting, but also a kind of a famous device. The form factor, it reminds me of the old school Game Boy Classic. But when it comes to the features, there are quite some differences when you're looking at different brands like the Powkiddy and of course the Anbenic. So the quality, that is one of the things that we do see some differences. If you don't buying an Anbernic, or let's say a Powkiddy is a different story, but let's say an Anbernic, you know have quite a nice consistency when it comes to the overall quality. And with these weird kind of a brand, you never know. So first of all, we're going to get two analog joysticks, and they're not Halo or digital joysticks, they're just a simple analog joystick you find in your Switch. The only difference is when you're looking at the joysticks, we find that we don't have the click. So that's interesting. So first of all, the configuration of the buttons is not my favorite, let's say, configuration. Having two joysticks over here, let me know in the comments, do you play with the joystick or the D-pad? I'd really love to know. But when it comes to the D-pad, I'm a D-pad guy. I'm just going to be honest. Like, the D-pad is one of the things that I play mostly when it comes to retro games. So here you do have this very long travel, but the feel, you have a very cheap click to it. But I'm very curious later on how this will evolve when it comes to, let's say, how it actually plays. So A, B, X, Y button, and also the buttons over here. Yeah, the positioning is not great, but also the way how it feels. Where I find it very cool having this nice color pattern. Yeah, the feel, you can see that it has a lot of wiggle room, and the travel of these things are absolutely horrible. And if you're just going to be playing, and yeah, you know, this is not the best configuration when it comes to the buttons. And then at the front we're having the select, the menu and the start buttons. They're just micro switched. At the left side we're going to having the on and off switch over here and the reset if you have any problems. With the X6 they went for only two back buttons, so that's a quite interesting and very strange choice. We have a physical volume control at the right, and here we're having, let's check if I didn't turn it on accidentally, and the SD card. But the SD cards they're using micro SD, but there's no brand whatsoever. And this can be an issue, because if they get corrupted out of nothing, yeah, it's a common thing nowadays. But how is it with the comfortability? So first of all, when it comes to the back buttons, they are micro switched, and they don't have a travel whatsoever. Not a bad thing in my opinion. Now, while holding the device itself, I must say they are easily reached, not to the point that you're going to be accidentally like touching them. So I must say the configuration of the two at the back, it's quite nice. Sometimes when you're buying products from AliExpress, you do have random gifts, and whoa, he did give me a lot of gifts. First of all, it comes with a very cheap, like very long Type-C cable for charging, and then we're going to get the AV out. Oh yeah, and the reason why, let's talk about it on the device. It's kind of interesting configuration. Here we're having the Type-C for charging, that's it, just charging, an AV out for a tiny jack connection, and we have a mini USB. And I'm guessing this is for attaching an extra controller, but I couldn't buy one. But what kind of cool goodies are we having here? Ah, we're going to have a panda. That's cool. The panda baby. It's a keychain. That's kind of cool. And then we're having Super Mario. And oh, they look in very nice quality. Okay, a very nice quality keychains, even with and toad, separately. So that's kind of cool. So in total, it seems to be we're having a couple of cool keychains for free. Nice. That's going to be in my claw machine. The toilet paper manual, that's something we always need to talk about. Yeah, and yeah, video player, that's actually how this thing is called. There is no brand whatsoever. So I always wonder, like, who is making these things? Not only the toilet paper manuals, I do have a lot of them, so I have a lot of stuff to wipe my butt with, but the question is what is the point of this? It just shows you an indication how everything, or actually where the buttons are, but that's it. There's no indication about the overall specifications or how the software works. Yeah. Let's talk about the display. To my surprise, what the software is, it's the same crap that we have seen before. Yeah, that sounds kind of negative, but I mean, when you're looking at this particular software, This is absolutely the stuff that we have seen in the beginning era. So this is actually really an X series device. The interface has been changed slightly. The display they are using is in 3.5 inches, within a resolution of 640 by 480, or that's actually what the specification says on the box or on the website itself. But when it comes to the display, there are a little bit of a couple of things I don't find that cool. So first of all, when you're looking at the display, this thing has a massive, freaking annoying bezel. But beside the bezel, we're also having the X6 logo on front of it. And the viewing angle is the same with all the previous X series devices. They're not IPS panels, but I guess that's what you're going to be getting for what you're paying for. Okay, so let's see what I'm having with the menu itself. So first of all, this runs really slow. We have at least like a second delay. I'm pressing it a couple of times, you can see, especially when you're pressing a couple of times, then you're only noticing that's quite annoying. Pressing the game over here, here we're getting into the menu. Now we're having a slightly better menu than before, but what the support is, we're going to get Super Famicom, Mega Drive, NES, MAME Arcade, and of course Neo Geo, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color. CPS has a Super Nintendo control, no idea why, and we're having another Famicom, Game Boy, and the SMC, and of course the SMD. Nevertheless, there are quite a lot of cool things that we can actually play with this, but this is purely made for 8-bit, 16-bit and MAME. So if you're looking into the Dreamcast, this is something you don't need to buy. Music, so we have this multimedia player. Think about the times of the PlayStation Portable. And then of course we're having pictures. We can watch pretty picture if you want to. Directory list, there are some previews over here. Here of a cute dog. Ah, man, that is cuteness overload. And it's absolutely a freaking mess. Videos. So I was wondering like what kind of stuff they're adding here. Era, The Mass, Ice Age, video. Let's put video. Okay, just giving you a preview of the thing. But that's it. There's not much you can just actually do with it. Ebook. And what's kind of confusing, what I noticed with the previous X series, people always thinking checking the browser, going on the internet, but this thing actually doesn't have any internet or Wi-Fi capabilities. It's back to basic, it just gives you the option to browse through the file system. Here we're having the tools, recorder, we have a stopwatch, a calculator and a calendar. Settings will bring you with some extra options. Here we're having the display options, the brightness can even set to higher. And I can tell you that the brightness of this thing is quite nice. It makes a really the sound it actually makes, showcasing that it is stuttering. Okay, backlight can be turned on and off. And basically what they mean with this is the standby time. So it's kind of interesting. Power saving options. Language, TV out. And TV out is a little bit annoying thing. If you need to plug it in, you need to go to the TV out function to activate it. It will not do it automatically. Information, that is also a very interesting thing. Kind of just to check out what kind of firmware it's running on. And it's slightly newer than the previous models we have seen before. It just shows you the card capacity and how much you're still having. And set user and reset to default. And that's the only thing. And that's actually what we're going to get with a few overview of the main menu. But if you're going to boot up a game, you can press the menu button over here. Will give you the option to go to settings and change out some settings like the controls and make a quick load, quick save. Take consideration with screen size. This is absolutely a lot of shenanigans. If you're going to put it on scale or messing around with it, you can get some good results, but it will change out every single emulator into certain overall, let's say, aspect ratio. At the front we're going to get the speaker. I didn't mention it before, I just wanted to show you, but also let you listen how it actually sounds. Like I mentioned before, if you want to get into the TV out function, the thing that we need to do is go all the way to the settings menu. Here we find the TV out function, and with the TV out you need to activate it yourself. And that is something that I find it quite annoying. And also quite a bummer, because there are cheaper devices out there in the same kind of price range that is a plug and play situation. Sometimes it takes forever to even load up, but it does it automatically. And with this, we just need to do it this way. And also, let's talk about the signal out. The signal output is pretty damn bad, and it still suffers from the same problem that when we're touching the cable it will flicker and go nuts. And that's a little bit of a bummer in my opinion. We can fix it by pushing it in, but you need to be very careful. So if you just want to use this like a game controller and you wiggle it too much around, you're going to get a lot of distortion in your screen. I'm plugging into an LCD. It will also give, in my opinion, a great example how it will look. I can tell you on the CRT it will look slightly better. But oh boy, this is absolutely looking horrendous. Alright, so let's check out if we can actually play this game. The back buttons don't do anything. They mapped it to all the front facing buttons. So when it comes to Neo Geo, they did a great job with that. But again, it's a very cool idea to plug it in and have a game system and plug and play situation. The overall performance, this is Neo Geo, so it's going to be an overall mix of performance when it comes to that. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you guys. It sounds pretty damn horrible. And I mean not particularly the audio speaker itself, but just the overall emulation performance. What's kind of bummer, and I know a lot of people saying, hey, you're not paying a lot of money for this particular product. But the thing is, after seeing so many of these X devices coming through, I realized they don't fix their mistakes. Where N64 and all the other stuff will not be on here, at least get those freaking, let's say, Super NES, NES emulation right. Another thing I really hate is this side banners. It looks absolutely awful. So let's go into the stretching. Screen size, keyboard mapping, no, screen size, wicked, screen size. Full, original size, I will also give you a quick look into that. No, 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 oh, this menu is so slow. Okay, this is actually how it will look in original. So let's be honest, this is not the way I actually want to play with this. Next up, let's see if we can change it back to full. But I'm just going to be honest with you, this sounds absolutely horrendous, and the emulation, it's just still a huge problem when it comes to Super NES. And I find it a little bit of a bummer, because this is not necessary when it comes to these cheaper devices. Let's get into the gameplay. You do see a lot of screen tearing going on. They also map the second joystick to the front facing buttons, another thing they're also doing with these cheaper devices. But beside the crazy screen tearing, the overall quality, I must say it's still playable in some way. So next up, let's see if we can actually have an okay emulation performance with Mega Drive, but also here we're going to get a shitload of screen tearing. And I have the feeling that it doesn't run on the full speed, where the audio is the same problem with a lot of emulators, or emulators at least. The cheaper handheld emulators. You can hear that there's no stereo sound coming out of this thing. In my opinion, a little bit of a bummer. So when it comes to Mega Drive, Okay, so next up, let's try another cool game, and yep, the NES. Every single freaking game I'm booting up has a shitload of screen tearing. Another thing I wanted to check out is if they implemented turbo buttons, but they didn't do that with this particular emulator. Because with the NES you're only going to need 2 buttons. But when it comes to the overall performance and the speed of the game, there we don't have any problems, but we do still have a lot of screen tearing. Okay, next up, let's try MAME, just to see how it actually runs. But so far I can see there is no screen tearing going on, and the overall emulation part is quite nice. So when it comes to the D-pad, the positioning, I really hate it, but when I'm actually playing, it's not that bad in my opinion. You can navigate through the stage no problem whatsoever. But the resistance of this D-pad is quite high. So in my opinion also makes it less comfortable to play. But it seems to be that actually the MAME runs pretty good. So that's awesome. So we were going to see a lot of great performance with MAME. I'm quite disappointed to see that they completely dropped the ball with Neo Geo, Arcade and BS. You can just hear the audio is not like it's supposed to be. But the overall gameplay, it's still, let's say, playable, but this is actually not the way how you want to experience these old cool games. Yeah, right, so... especially when you're listening to the sound of the Go, there you can actually hear that it is sounding absolutely off. Another system I wanted to see running great is GBA, and they finally managed to not mess this up. The screen tearing is not that awful. It's still there, it's still noticeable. Or maybe because of the speed of the game. Also, the buttons have been mapped correctly, the A and B. So when it comes to GBA playing on this, it's absolutely great in my opinion. Another test I wanted to check out is the art of fighting on Neo Geo. Where I heard a lot of like stuttering in the beginning of this actually like booting up the game. The game seems to be running just fine. Another great test is going to be the D-pad, and oh boy, this thing is absolutely great for fighting games. Look at this. Amazing. I'm just surprised actually how good this plays. Oh, is it going to be switching the D-pad to there? Oh, it's going to be absolutely a lot of fun playing on this. So next up, let's check out some other, let's say, Super Nintendo games. And I've noticed when you check out some of the games where they have a lot of frame drops, it actually runs pretty decent, actually getting into the gameplay itself. Oh, I'm going to get my ass whooped here. Oh man, no, 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 ah! How is it with maintenance and how can we open it up? It's very easy. You only need to remove 6 of the screws over here when the top cover, or sorry, the back cover can be removed. And this is actually the components that you find in the inside. This tiny part, I'm just going to leave it in because there was nothing much to see on the other side than the LCD. So when you're looking at the overall, the way how they made it is one big huge PCB. And if you need to replace, you need to do a lot of soldering, including the battery. The battery itself is a 2000 milliamp lithium battery. Most of the time they will give you around maybe 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. It can be more, but around that time. There is not a lot of information about that, but 2000 milliamp is not a lot. Most of the time you're going to get 3,000-4,000 milliamp with some of the, let's say, devices. It also explains why they having the option, or at least this certain way how they made it, because it gives some place for the battery. And I can tell you, there is some room to, let's say, upgrade it if you want to. But the only downside is you need to do soldering, because it has been soldered here on the main board. No plug, because the plugs would be so much easier to plug it out, in and out, and that's it. So when it comes to the chip here we're having, it's the ATJ2273S. It's not your typical rock chip or AM logic. So what I understand of, I'm just going to be honest, I'm not an expert in these chips, especially with those cheaper devices. Then we're going to have the production date, and that is 2023-05-04. So that's actually what we're finding inside the machine itself. So if you want to maintain it, you need to repair some things. It is possible and quite easy in my opinion.